Rouse's Markets is voted best grocery store in New Orleans, best grocery store in Baton Rouge, Mississippi, Gulf Coast, Thibodeau, Houma, Hammond, Lake Charles, Mobile, year after year. Thank you for choosing us best grocery store on the Gulf Coast. Number one. Thank you.
Thank you.
The number one grocery store
In Mississippi, Alabama,
Louisiana. 1 million customers a week can't be wrong. Welcome to Rouse's.
And we're back. It's time for another Good Vibes on Martin Falls. That is Debbie Cox-Danova. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you. All right. Charm and attraction hacks.
Yes.
Everybody should tune in.
I think everybody should tune in,
Yeah,
of course.
this
right.
would be cool.
This information comes from Vanessa Van Edwards, our favorite.
You did something different with your eyes.
What?
I could tell.
Oh,
Yeah.
Is it charming? Is it attractive?
Charming and attractive. You go
Thank
right
you.
along with the show.
You want to know what it is? I have an eyelash lift going on.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay, well, I just noticed.
Thank you for noticing.
See, men are supposed to notice.
That's correct. Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right.
I love that.
All right.
And I love that you started with that, because one of the main things that we need to remember when it comes to charm and attraction is that we typically think in terms of, like, if I want to be charming and I want to be attractive, we think a lot about how we show up for other people, right? So it's like, if you're thinking about going into a room, whether it's for business or a party or on a date, you're thinking in terms of how can I convey a certain sort of persona to this person in order to get them to like me. Well, that's a very out-focused kind of thing. What the research shows, and we have talked about this study over and over again, about the high school study on popularity, where they took multiple high schools and they wanted to find out what it was that made the most popular people the most popular. And they actually were looking for things that you might think, well, of course, maybe it's the attractiveness, sports, maybe they're funny, that kind of thing. And it was none of those things. In fact, the people who were the most popular across the board were the people who had the longest list of people that they liked. So we have to remember that whenever we are first meeting someone, we are doing what's called thin slicing. We're actually immediately picking up on all the cues to find out whether or not I can trust you. Do you like me? Can I trust you? Because if within the first 7 seconds of meeting somebody, you feel as though they like you and that you can trust them, at that point afterward, you can say and do a whole lot of things, because my original sense of who you are is what I'm going to believe. I'm going to be building legs under my original impression. So we need to know what the cues are, because we are actually designed as human beings to pick up on these little micro cues that maybe on a conscious level we don't even know that we're picking up on, right? And through all the senses that we talked about, and recognize that when you are meeting someone, you want to convey to them that you actually are interested in liking them. You may not know them yet. Maybe you don't like them, right? But if you can actually take the focus off of yourself, in other words, people are not interested in about like how you can be the most funny until they recognize that they are safe around you, right? So if you can actually make the goal for yourself, how can I like this person? So if you're asking yourself in a new interaction, what is a way that I can like this person the very most? And you're actually seeking for that. That intention comes across and people will feel safer around you. Having someone feel I like you is one of the biggest gifts that you can give to them, because we have a sense of a very encoded sense of needing belonging and needing to be felt like we're broadly loved by someone. In fact, we know through research that when someone doesn't feel like they're broadly loved anywhere, it actually results in very damaging health results. So mentally, physically, they're actually more at risk for all sorts of degenerative diseases down the line. Why? Because it's a very stress-inducing experience as a human being.
So if Joe comes in the bar and Jane's sitting there, and Joe comes across as funny, Jane's going to immediately say, he's a funny guy, but is he safe?
Well, yes, and that may not be on a conscious level, but for sure on a subconscious level, we are looking for all the cues. We're looking for cues of coherence, right? So if somebody is like, hey, Martin, do you like Debbie? And you go, yeah, she's great. But your head is doing that, right? That's an incoherent kind of thing. We like the coherence. We like when we talked about hand gestures, which, by the way, charismatic people use a lot of dynamic hand gestures, over double the amount that non-charismatic people use. But they use them very specifically. They use them to underpin things that they're saying, so like to underscore what they're saying, and to lighten the cognitive load on what you're saying. So if you tried to say, like, if try it right now, and you can try it at home as well, to say 4 and hold up the number 3. 4. Try it right now.
4.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Doesn't it feel a little strange? Like, it's almost like there's an internal, like, right?
Yeah.
And so what will happen if you watch somebody trying to do that, trying to say something and their hand gestures are saying something different, there are cues that you pick up on that there's like an internal
I
kind
had
of
to
like.
think before I did it.
Exactly. Right.
So there's a pause.
There's a pause. So, and just a little side note, people who are deceitful, who lie a lot, their hand gestures tend to be honest. So if you are watching somebody and they're saying something with their mouth, but their gestures, their facial expressions, they're not matching, you can trust the gestures more than you can the words. So watch for
I
that.
look at gestures more than I hear the words.
Yeah, and
all the time.
Some people are really good at masking that.
they're really
but
good.
there are some things that you cannot mask. You can't mask your blink rate. If someone's being super deceitful, their blink rate is faster, and the more you bring attention to it, it's not something you can control. The more you bring attention to it, the more you want to blink, right? So if you watch for somebody who blinks a lot, and sometimes it's just a quirky thing, but it can give you cues as to whether or not they are somebody that you can trust.
Excuse me, I have dry eye.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want to like make large
Right.
sweeping decisions about people, but it's really important to recognize that what people are looking for is can I trust you? If they're picking up on micro cues from you of rejection, of social rejection, what happens is that the pupils actually dilate to take in more, and what's happening there is that they're basically going, how does everybody else feel about me? Where's the exit? Am I even safe here, right? So what we do and what we convey to other people actually changes their physiology, like literally changes their physiology. And after the break, I can tell you how you can actually help keep yourself centered when you're picking up on cues of rejection.
All right. I can't wait to hear the rest of this conversation because it's a good one. We'll be right back. Today's social media segment is brought to you by Terrebonne General Health System. Your health is our legacy. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bork, know your rights. All right, we are back and we're talking about charm and attraction hacks. And Debbie Cox-DeNova is with us today. And of course, she is so good at this. All right, so I've told you this before. I notice when we're in town or having coffee or whatever, that people are attracted to you. And I notice that about certain people.
Right.
If you can attract a crowd without really trying to attract a crowd, that's a good thing.
Yes. Yes, it's showing you that the cues that you're putting off are safety cues for other human beings. We're really, really good at in a number of different ways of thin slicing and actually going, is this person safe or not? And if there's incoherence in the way that they show up, like there are a few things that actually build trust in people really quickly. One of them is called fronting. Fronting means that you see how we're facing each other right now, toes, torso, head, pointed in the same direction. We're along the same train tracks. If I was talking to you and I actually was looking at you like this, you might be a little bit like, but like, why are you, right? It's an off-putting. It doesn't feel as connected as going straight ahead and keeping it.
I would think you were snooty.
Yeah, well, totally. And so, and a lot of people think that they're doing fronting, but they're actually doing cues. Their cues might be like they pull a shoulder back, right? Or they're looking like this. And that shows a level of disinterest in the other person. And we pick up on those cues, right?
Yeah.
So another thing is with the nodding, right? Like actually nodding in order to convey that you are paying attention. And really charismatic people, like we talked about, are using those dynamic hand gestures, right? But they're also doing a lot of eyebrow raises. We talked about that, right? So an eyebrow raise, if I'm talking, is something that can convey to you that I'm about to say something that's worth paying attention to. But if you're talking and I'm using an eyebrow raise, that's showing you that, oh, I think this idea that you're sharing with me is worth my own attention and praise. So charismatic people, hand gestures are dynamic. They do a lot of eyebrow raises. And the other thing is that they are really good about eliciting excitement in other people. So what Vanessa Van Edwards says—
an expressive face.
Expressive face, but in a way that is like, obviously if it was expressive like contempt, like you'd be like, oh, what, that's a micro expression.
Bye.
Yeah, that's an expression of disapproval of you, right? And we'll get to this because this is really powerful. If you are somebody who is very sensitive to someone else's cues and you recognize, oh, I'm giving a speech and I'm getting these cues of like contempt or disinterest, right? That can actually make it so that, remember, we're contagious to people. You become afraid. It activates your amygdala to view other people giving social cues of rejection. And of course, when that happens, your chemistry changes and you become in a fear state. And that's not a good thing because we're contagious to people, right? So we talked about the study where they take 2 groups of people in a lab. They separate them. The first, and they all have these little sweat pads that they have to wear, right? First group is just running on a treadmill and get the sweat on the sweat pad. The second group goes for the first time skydiving and get that kind of sweat on the sweat pad. What's interesting is that they put people in fMRI machines and they didn't even tell them they were smelling sweat. Like they didn't tell them what they were smelling. They allowed them to smell the sweat pads from both groups. And what they found is that only with the group that was skydiving, the fear state would actually activate the amygdala of the person in the fMRI machine. So in other words, just the smell of the chemistry of a person who is really afraid gets someone to actually start feeling afraid too. It also works visually.
Is it a pheromone or something?
It could be like pheromones. Yes, we're picking up on the subtle, like our olfactory system is picking up on that subtle smell of the
musk.
Cortisol and the epinephrine and okay. So we're designed that way. But we're also designed visually when someone is giving cues of fear, and same fMRI machine, you're seeing someone give you cues of fear, there's something about your brain that goes, they're afraid, I should be afraid too. You ever saw the experiments where you start running around the corner like you're being chased and people will just start running with you without asking questions because it's like we're designed to look at other people and go, oh, we're supposed to feel this way.
Or go put a briefcase in the mall and take off. Everybody freaks out.
Exactly. So,
and they should.
And look, we're designed to do that. But what if you are giving a speech or you're sitting at the head, as an executive of a meeting and you're picking up on cues just from that one negative person or a couple of negative people and you feel like your fear state starts coming up. What they found in studies is that if you are lying there in the fMRI machine and you see somebody who's afraid, you can actually calm your amygdala by using your prefrontal cortex to label what you're seeing. So it's really important to be educated on the things that we've talked about before, where it's like the signs of contempt or like, pulling away or arms crossed, to be able to label that and say, oh, that is an expression of rejection. And the minute you say that's an expression of rejection, your amygdala calms down. Because you've just labeled it.
Who's good at taking negatives and just destroying them? Donald Trump. Speaking to Congress this week.
Yes.
Half the room sitting down and pouting and giving him look. He thrives on it.
Yeah, no, not shaken at all, right? And so that's the main thing, is that you can't control other people's cues. You can only control what's happening inside of here, but to remember that you can control it is really powerful. And so to start with, like being able to prime yourself, I know that I work with a lot of people as a coach who are just have social anxiety, right? And so they need to go into these business networking events or, parties. They want to actually make connections, but it gives them high anxiety. So to remember that you don't want to show up to a party with high anxiety. You want to do everything that you can to bring yourself into a good state. And one of the best ways to flip your neurochemistry is to laugh. So if you're getting ready to go to a party or something like that, listen to comedy, watch a funny show, get yourself laughing, and then do everything that you can to actually have support. Bring a wingman with you. If there's a person that you're you just cannot stand, don't go to the event if
Right.
you don't have to. Don't put yourself in uncomfortable positions because it's going to actually exacerbate that fear state and the association you have to social
Bring
settings.
somebody who's going to laugh at everything you say.
Yes.
Yeah. Great topic.
Thank
Can't
you.
wait till next week.
Yes.
And we'll see you next week right here on Good Vibes. Today's social media segment is brought to you by Alford and Associates for all of your insurance needs. CIS, Cardiovascular Institute of the South, the highest quality cardiovascular care available. Barker Honda, the Barker family tradition of quality.